Video here. I'm going to move some things around. I'm part of a writers group that does a annual Halloween reading, and tonight is the night that we're doing the reading, and I procrastinated on writing a flash piece for the reading. What we do basically is, as a group, we come up with a bunch of different prompts, and we vote on those prompts, and then whichever ones are left, everybody writes a flash piece, and then we'll read it at the group. And if you haven't written anything, it's an opportunity to do, have something that you can work on and then submit later. And we try and do this quarterly so that everybody, even if you aren't working on your own stuff, you've got something that you have performed in front of an audience and gotten some feedback on. Often once it's gone through the reading thing, people will work on a little more. It'll go through the table to get some more development and critique, and then it might be in a place where it could go to, be submitted. So this year, the two prompts are "Those Aren't My Kids" and "My Portals Have Cobwebs." So these are Halloween prompts. When I sit down to do anything, I almost immediately start with the Shun manuscript format. And if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a standardized format that if you submit through, like to almost any magazine, like a lot of them use kind of automated systems now, but they almost always want it to be in this format, which is a kind of specific template using, usually the same font, like not Courier anymore. It used to be that. Now it's, pretty much Times Roman or whatever they specify. If they want something, if they're willing to be flexible there, then you could do something, different with fonts, but usually they always want it in the same font. And it's essentially a way to kind of normalize stories so that I guess the editor is always seeing a story for what it is, not like whatever weird formatting might be going on in the story. There certainly are stories out there now that have different formattings that are probably a challenge for editors. Like, I haven't seen that many lit RPG short stories, but if there were, or a story that's really working based on, format changes and edit, things like that, like the appearance of the story, it's probably not going to the standard science fiction and fantasy magazines that are out there right now. So, the way this usually works is you'll have an address block. A lot of them don't care about your street address anymore. I'm not going to put my street address in here. But it would be, street address, and then typically your PayPal email. So that would be like, James at, and that's because a lot of them pay through PayPal or whatever online thing they might be using. Maybe phone number, although not typically. I'll get rid of that hyperlink because I don't like that. And then we'll go back up to the top, and over here, this is going to be a 1,000-word story. I'm not going to go over that. So that's where you would put at the top, you'll go ahead and put whatever the prospected number of words the story is going to be. And I always like to do this because it gives me a target to shoot for. Like I know where I need to be. And I'll talk about that in a second when it comes to a flash piece. But also, one of the reasons I like doing this format like this is that it kind of gives a story shape right from the start. I'm already immediately getting into the format of a thing that can be sent to an editor. And that's not extra work I have to do. And for me, it makes the story a little more real that it exists in the world, right? So we'll just call this Halloween reading story for now. I can't type. There it is. And we're going to put that centered. Okay. Now from here on out, everything up here was single spaced. We also wanted, oh, you know what I forgot was my byline. When Word does all these little things, like I don't like it when it capitalizes by, you can hit Control-Z and it'll take that away. I probably could have done that with the hyperlink too, up under my email address. I just didn't do that. So one thing, I use a pen name. So if you were using a pen name, you could do your real name up here and then under that, just pen name, colon, whatever your pen name is. Editors are typically fine with that anymore. So okay. Now, kind of a holdover from the reason like all this space is up here, like it's in the Shun format still. A lot of newer editors or editors in magazines working mostly digital probably don't care as much about this space anymore, but that used to be where the editor would handwrite notes, or someone giving a critique would handwrite notes if that was, going on to a handwritten story. That's kind of what this space is for. I've still worked with editors and critique partners that really want that space. so I leave that there. All right, so now we're down into where the meat of the story would begin. Now, I'll be honest, these prompts aren't really speaking to me. So how are we going to turn this into some kind of story? Those aren't my kids, or my portals have cobwebs. The thing about my portals have cobwebs is it immediately makes me think of, I don't know, off-color jokes that we probably don't want to get into. This is also, I want to say, like, the group definitely will read, horror content or adult content to a certain extent, but the thing about the Halloween reading is that it could be open to other attendees, and so we don't want to get too wild about it. So sometimes people also just have fun and try and get as many of the prompts in their story as they can. Also, if none of this is speaking to you, you don't have to do the prompts at all. But as part of the exercise, like, I like to try and do something with the prompts. So those aren't my kids. Like, the first thing, it kind of depends on the headspace I'm in. Do I feel like writing science fiction? Do I feel like writing fantasy? Those aren't my kids feels like maybe somebody stuck at a playground with some kids that are acting out and they don't know what to do about that. Why don't we back up to what a flash piece, my interpretation of a flash piece. So 1,000 words, that's just about enough space for maybe 3 scenes, if not less. If we're going about, 300 words per scene, we need to try and establish a character, show what that character's problem is and why they want to solve it, get some kind of character voice in there, and then there's probably room for, there is room for 2 characters, maybe 3, but that could be pushing it. And then some kind of, resolution at the end, ideally, or the story ending on some sort of realization or change in the character that sort of propels them forward into a new understanding or a new world in some way. Like, if any story is going to be about a character's realization of something or a decision that they're making in some way to either respond to or not respond to a problem that they're dealing with, and that's what a short story is, then a flash piece is an even more compressed piece of that. Like, it's just a very tiny view on a person dealing with a problem in some way. For me, like, those aren't my kids. Like, my mind goes to, my wife and I spent time with fertility support groups and people yearning for kids and not being able to have them. And then once you have kids, once you've been through that process, you feel bad if you're frustrated with your kids because you wanted them so badly and there are people out there that can't have them. My portals have cobwebs. So portals to me is could be science fictional. I like the idea of science fiction portals. I love the idea of wormholes. Cobwebs, they haven't been used in a long time. So, like, thinking about Stargate, but in a castle, and there are spiders, or we could do giant spiders with portals. That's could be interesting, but I get kind of tired of writing about spiders. I really like spiders, but people don't like to read about spiders, is what I've discovered. So I really should just be writing some of these ideas down, I guess. Like, I like the idea of, like, an old castle Oh, look, my font already changed. Well, that's irritating. So let's fix that. You know, the other thing I could do if we're just trying to get this into place. Actually, we need two pages in order to do this. So the other piece that you should probably do just from the beginning so you don't forget is set up your header. So we also want to do different first page, which means that the word numbering or the page numbering isn't going to go on the first page. That page should just be the header and whatnot. So, you know, typically your author name or last name, and then short, and then we want to insert a page number, which I think is under insert in Word and page number and top of the page. Yep. Okay, and it just deleted what I wrote there, but that's okay. We'll make it the same font as... And I like to do that right off just so I don't forget, because inevitably you'll have worked on a story and then you realize you submitted it and didn't put this stuff in there that they want, which this is part of the Shun format to put the page numbers on there. All right, we don't have to say an old castle because castles are old. So as I'm thinking about this castle and portals to other dimensions in time and space, like I love the idea about the castle being a way station. A character who lost something. I love cat. I mean, I think getting an animal in there is always good. The thing about a cat as a driver for a story, cats don't do what you want. Whereas a dog, if a dog isn't going to do what you want, you kind of feel like the dog is trying to find something. We have a new dog. We had lost our old dog, which I'm still a little sad about. But our new dog, he was a rescue, and we're still getting to know him. He has cat energy as a dog, and he's very quiet. He has barked at this point, but there was a point when we had never heard him bark. The characters should probably just know they live in a castle with portals. Otherwise, you're going to have to waste a lot of time explaining that. So the problem isn't that they have portals in the castle. It's that they have a new dog in the house, and the dog has discovered the portals. So they have portals in the castle. The new dog has discovered the portal, entered one, and they don't know where he is. So something to always think about is this too big for a flash piece? And then I think my character could also have, the previous dog could have understood the portals very well. Character. And now he hasn't wanted to travel them because he misses his friend. And also maybe he was a little bit like Lassie and knew how to navigate the portals. He always knew how to get home. Okay, so our character could... So one of the things that try to do, and we can probably end this video here, is the first sentence, or at least the first paragraph, we need to try and completely ground the reader in where and when we are, what kind of story this is, who the character is, and what their problem is, and then why they need to solve it. So I've got a lot here, but so what's the inciting incident? So what starts this story? And I don't really like this line, but at least gets things kind of rolling. So it was dinner time, and Rodney hadn't come running to eat like usual. I don't really think about names that much at this point. Like, I'll go back and do names afterwards. So let's just to get words going. We're in a castle. So already, like, I really need to get to the fact that we're in a castle to begin with, but John stood in the oversized kitchen with the food dish at his feet, calling. So this is already difficult, because, like, how do I get all this information in here about having lost the old dog, living in a castle with portals, and get it right in there? So this is going to take a little time to think about this. I think I just should write it out. So I don't like any of this, but I'm just getting it out there. Had yet to bark once. So this is a little dark, but it is a Halloween story. Saying that he avoided a kill shelter. Like, I'm already putting this story in kind of a dark place, but only through the kindness of a foster family. All right, so Rodney could also already be a little bit magical because he avoided death. So here, okay, so here we've kind of set things up. We're in an oversized kitchen. John stood in the castle. Why don't we just say in the castle's kitchen, in the castle's oversized kitchen, which puts us in kind of a magical place. In the castle's oversized kitchen with the food dish at his feet, calling for his new friend. So now we can introduce this information from another character. So if we say looked up from her homework, I'm signaling that Agnes is young, and this is like more of a YA story. And I actually don't want to go there. So we could just say Agnes looked up from her boiling pot. That kind of suggests Agnes is a witch. All right. It was dinner time, and their new dog, Rodney, hadn't come running to eat like usual. John stood in the castle's oversized kitchen with the food dish at his feet, calling for their new friend. That signals that there's more people in the scene than just him. Rodney was a rescue, brought home as a replacement for Tippy, who died. I'm going to change that name. And unlike their previous dog, had yet to bark once. Oh, I already said Rodney was a rescue. Okay, so Rodney was abandoned at a vet's clinic in Sacramento, and had only avoided a kill shelter through the kindness of a foster family. Agnes looked up from her boiling pot. You don't think he got into a portal already, do you? Okay, we're already going somewhere kind of dark, but the words are starting to roll here. So you can kind of see how this can get going as you try and just starting with a prompt. And we could do another video talking about prompts and maybe how to come up with prompts and capture prompts. But going from there, and now already I'm starting to roll a little bit. I've got two characters in a scene interacting. They've got a problem. Their new dog has run off, and they live in a castle full of portals. That could be a problem. What are we going to do about that? And then maybe how can this help get them over the loss of their other dog? And how can I do that in 1,000 words? So, all right. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there are different ways that you would approach something like this. And maybe I'll do more of these. So thanks for hanging out. I'm James S. Aaron, and I will see you next time. Later.